Now that the Boox Note Air 3 series is complete, let's compare the Note Air 3 and the Note Air 3C and see which one is the better choice. Do not waste your time, here's the quick answer before talking about these points in more detail. The Boox Note Air 3 is the better choice if you hate using a front light and want a more paper-like experience. It's also much better in terms of battery life. The Boox Note Air 3C is better if you often read comics and colored mangas and other color content. It's also better in terms of the screen's refresh time and ghosting. So running unread apps is not only a bit better because of the colors, but also in terms of responsiveness. Pen response and pressure levels are also a bit better at the moment, thanks to the tilting detection, which is missing on the black and white tablet. What's much worse than on the Note Air 3 is the readability without activating the front light and battery life. Personally, I'd recommend the Boox Note Air 3 to most people, simply because I think battery life on the Note Air 3C is borderland too short in comparison. But obviously, if colored content is what you're using most, the Note Air 3C is the better choice. If those are the answers you were looking for, thanks for your time watching. Please like and subscribe for more comparisons and reviews, and see you next time. For everyone else, let's dive into the specifics of the mentioned points. Let's talk about the exterior, which will be quick because both are basically identical. You have the power button with the integrated fingerprint reader on both. There is also a microSD card slot here, and the stereo speakers. And both have the same unibody build, which is one of the best on the market, making them really comfortable to hold. The weight difference of 25 grams is a bit of a head scratcher, to be honest. The Boox Note Air 3C weighs 440 grams, which is 10 grams more than the official specs list. And the Note Air 3 weighs 465 grams, which is 15 grams more than official specs say it should have. So besides those inaccuracies with the official specs, I honestly don't get why there is a 25 grams weight difference between those two. They have the same 3700 milliamps battery capacity, the same build, same stereo speakers. You get the idea. The only notable difference are the screens. But even comparing those doesn't really offer a good explanation, because the Note Air 3C has an Kaleido 3 color screen. The way this tech works is by using a regular Carta screen and stacking it with an RGB layer. That color filter is sitting right on top of the ink pixels, so from my understanding, there shouldn't be a huge difference between both tablets, because the Note Air 3 is using an Carta with 100 screen without the color filter. If anything, I would have expected the Note Air 3C to be the heavier of the two. So right now, I don't have a good explanation for the weight difference. So to finish this segment, holding a Note Air 3C is a bit better as a result because it's not as heavy. But honestly, typically I am propping both up on a desk because neither is really light enough to easily hold with one hand for longer periods. Which brings us to the displays, which I suspect you're most interested about. So I already mentioned the screen technologies in play here: Kaleido 3 and Carta 1200. Carta 1200 is one of the best ePaper technologies you can get at the moment when it comes to contrast levels. It's the same technology used in the latest Kindles. So if you've used one of those, you'll know what to expect. Kaleido 3 is a different beast. As I said, it uses a color filter on top of that regular e-ink screen to generate colors. It works by selectively darkening the ink screen underneath the RGB subpixels of that color filter. So while the Kaleido 3 color filter approach is a cool way of creating colors on E, it has two downsides, which are both very obvious. The screen is much darker when not using a front LED, and the colors are muted. And looking at both tablets side by side without using a front LED, it's not hard to see what I'm talking about. It's a night and day difference, essentially. So using the Note Air 3C without the frontlet is not really feasible in my opinion. It's only fine in direct sunlight, but any other scenario using the frontlet is essentially a must if you ask me. That's completely different on the Note Air 3. In Carta 100 is much more reflective on its own because there's no Ultra B filter for the light to pass through. So even without the frontlet, the display is super easy to read in regularly lit rooms. Looking at the frontlets side by side, there are also a couple of differences. The Note Air 3C is much dimmer at the maximum brightness level, 43 nits to be exact, versus 123 nits on the Note Air 3. So the black and white screen can look a bit cleaner even though it has the low resolution, simply because blacks tend to pop a little more. The Note Air 3C's frontlet in a cold white setting is looking much warmer in direct comparison, which is totally fine on its own, but can be a bit too much if you like to set it to a cooler color temperature. Another thing I mentioned in the Boox Note Air 3C review already is that there's a subtle shadow noticeable on the outer edge of the screen. There's nothing like this on the Note Air 3. Where the Note Air 3C has the upper hand is the evenness of the front light. There's a somewhat obvious brightness gradient on the Note Air 3, and even when matching brightness levels, the gradient is more pronounced on a black and white screen. Here are the numbers in the different areas of the screens. So roughly a 15% brightness difference from left to right on the Note Air 3, and only a 9% difference on the Note Air 3C. Let's talk about the screen's resolutions. The Note Air 3's 227 ppi resolution is good, but not the best on the market. But as I said, it still looks pretty good. The Note Air 3C actually has two resolutions, 3 in a ppi for the black and white screen, and the 150 ppi for the color field. So looking at black text, the Note Air 3C appears to be a bit sharper. But honestly, the difference is so small that even side by side, you have to look closely to see it. The reason why it's not more obvious is that the RGB filter ever so slightly degrades image quality. So I'd say it's a draw, to be completely honest. Pixel peepers might disagree with me on that one, but I suspect most people won't mind the difference in this case. But that's only true when talking about pure text contents with black letters. With color content, the difference in resolution is more obvious, especially with tiny colored text. Here, the Note Air 3 is better, because the Note Air 3C's 150 ppi color resolution is struggling with small text. For other contents, the 150 ppi resolution isn't an issue though, especially if there are black outlines, like you often see in comics. The 300 ppi EAM resolution can mask the lower RGB resolution a bit. Besides all of those mentioned points, what's also important to note is that the display clarity is also better on the Note Air 3. The RGB filter on the Note Air 3C not only darkens the screen, but also creates a subtle grain. It's not super noticeable on its own, and I actually don't mind it on Kaleido 3, but side by side, you can't deny that the Note Air 3 screen looks keener, for the lack of a better word. I haven't noticed a difference in touchscreen responsiveness, and pen latency is also similar, but the Note Air 3C is a bit faster, as evidenced by these ultra slow motion shots. Writing with any one of these tablets feels pretty good. There's a small delay when starting to write with the pen on a Note Air 3C that's missing on a Note Air 3. On a Note Air 3, however, there's sometimes a bit of lag after you start writing. It's not always there, but pretty consistently nonetheless. Both can be a bit annoying, but I'd say it's not a deal breaker, and the writing experience is still great in both. Another difference is that the tablets don't respond to the pen's pressure in the same way, which is a bit surprising to be honest. The Boox Note Air 3C seems to be fine-tuned better in my opinion, which is very obvious with the tilting function. The color tablet responds to tilting the pen. The Note Air 3 Not really. Personally, I prefer the Note Air 3C's behavior, but you can argue that it's a bit too much if you want to be nitpicky. The preamp light screen protector seems to be exactly the same on both, and I can't really tell difference. And even if there is one, I'd say it's due to manufacturing tolerances. So both offer the same level of paper-like writing feel, which feels good to use. Which brings us to the differences in software and battery life, which go hand in hand and also tie in the different display technologies. Both tablets run Android 12 and are using the same Boox launcher. There's no difference in the basic software features, so if you want to learn more about those, please check out my reviews of the tablets linked in the description below. There's one notable difference though. The screen refresh rates are a bit different thanks to the Boox Super Refresh technology that's available on the Note Air 3C. That technology allows for better display refreshes, better response times, and less ghosting. I suspect the latter is also the reason why Boox implemented this technology here, but not on the Note Air 3. Because the way ink Kaleido works, ghosting can be even more noticeable than usual, and they might have chosen to reduce it any way they can, which meant using the Boox Super Refresh technology. On the plus side, it works perfectly fine. There's still ghosting, which can't be prevented completely as of yet, but when comparing the faster display modes on both devices, ghosting on the Note Air 3C is less pronounced. So running fast-paced Android apps and even watching videos on the 3C is a better experience than only Note Air 3. Unfortunately, the Boox Super Refresh technology doesn't also result in super battery life. Quite the opposite, in fact. Even when using the regular HD mode on the Note Air 3C, battery life is noticeably shorter in comparison. So in the most extreme case, we are talking about roughly 50 hours of battery life on the Note Air 3 when not using a front light, since you don't really need it during a day, when turning a page every 15 seconds, and only around 8 hours of battery life when turning up the front LED on the Note Air 3C, which is needed pretty much all of the time to read comfortably. The numbers are a bit closer together when also turning up the front LED on the Note Air 3, but even at 100% brightness setting, it lasts almost 3 times as long on one charge. And that brightness setting is something I personally barely use because you really don't need it. So if you want to take full advantage of the most important ink display benefits, which are great readability without an additional light source and long battery life, the Boox Note Air 3 is the much better choice. That's it with this comparison. As you can see, even though both devices are part of the Note Air 3 series and look similar on the surface, there are many differences when looking closely. So which one is better? Well, there isn't one that's generally better for everyone. It simply depends on your focus. Are you looking for a tablet to mainly use Android apps and typically read colored comics and mangas and can live with the short-ish battery life? Then you can't really go wrong with the Note Air 3C. But if you prefer using ink without the front light, and better left is important to you while not making heavy use of Android expandability, then the Note Air 3 is the right choice. Please like and subscribe if you found this comparison helpful. And also please let me know in the comments below if you have any questions I haven't answered. I'll try to answer as many as I can, and also try to incorporate important topics in future videos as well. Thanks for time watching, and see you in the next one.